So we're going to get Spanky dressed in a nice in-play live cape with a speedo on for that event.
you couldn't pay enough of a sponsorship fee to get that to happen, Pace. But I love you anyway.
Oh,
but
so yeah, it's happening regardless of what he says. So we just.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Lines, the only podcast purifying the sports betting industry. Remember to like, download, subscribe, follow us on all the socials at InPlay Live. I'm your host, Shane Mercer, as always, joined by Andrew Pace, founder of InPlay Live, a community of like-minded sports bettors dedicated to long-term success. And wow, on today's show, what a guest, the host of the BetBash podcast, founder of the Sports Betting Hall of Fame, creator of BetBash, a legendary professional sports bettor, Gadun Kyrilos, best known in the world of professional sports betting as none other than Spanky. Welcome to the show, my man. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me, Shane. The pleasure's all mine. And Pace, I'm doing well. Just got back from a trip to Nashville, so trying to recharge the batteries, but we're ready to rock.
That was an incredible intro. I thought that was like a Game of Thrones thing when they're introducing like Mother of Dragons, Lord of the Undead.
When we have a guest like this on, I feel like I really got to ramp it up a little bit, really sort of, give him his flowers, so to speak. But Spanky, we're really excited to have you here on the show. I just think that, you're the kind of guy that can offer our audience just so much value in such a short amount of time by appearing here on a podcast like this. First, though, I want to ask you about something. The Olympics, just around the corner. Are you excited for the Olympics? And I think that the Olympics, is something that's played a major role in your sports betting career. Particularly, I know you've shared a story about almost like an infinite money glitch related to the Olympics. But how are you feeling with the Olympics coming up soon? And you can share that story if you'd like.
I don't even remember the story. I'm trying to remember it now. There's so many stories. Can you remind me, Shane? I
think you had an edge, and the bookmaker was, showing you their card, so to speak, without necessarily doing it on purpose.
Okay, I don't recollect that. There's so many glitches and edges and everything over the years. It's all a blur now, brother. I don't even remember what I had for dinner last night, let alone all these things. But yeah, Olympics is one of those things in which it's just, we try not to focus too much on things that happen once in a while. Just because there's a lot, I don't know, the juice, for us at least, it might not be worth the squeeze. So, we're more focused on the stuff that happens every single year, all the time, and there's a lot of games. Our primary edge comes from, sports like college basketball, college football, where there's just so many games every year. And then, then you get the edge dissipates when you get into the pro sports. But yeah, Olympics it's great. I love watching the Olympics here and there, but as a sports bettor, it really isn't that big of a deal for us, to be honest. Same thing, the World Cup, it's great. We bet on it, but it's not something that just comes along here and there. And if we see something nice, or if we, we'll attack. But otherwise, we're just trying to focus on the bread and butter that keeps us, operational every single year.
Hey, fair enough. I mean, the Olympics hitting at a time where the bread and butter is kind of off the table for a little bit, but it is coming. It's right around the corner. NFL football season, almost within grasp, and preseason really just, a couple of weeks away. So pretty exciting there. Okay, so Spanky, I want to give people a little bit about your background, just in case they don't know much about you or where you came from or how you came up. But you went to school for computer programming. Am I correct?
Yeah, I hold a dual degree in computer science and finance from Rutgers University. Graduated summa cum laude, which is surprising to most. I was very studious, and I gave it. I cared about getting good grades, and I wanted to learn. I was, I'm not saying I'm an intellect by any means, but I cared, and everything I do, I put my all in. And I kind of used that to work at Deutsche Bank right out of school, and was always interested in beating the game and beating the gambling game. And I was able to utilize a lot of the things I learned from both my degree and both by working at Deutsche Bank to apply it to the sports betting world. And, I've been betting sports full time exclusively. That's my only income since 2003. I've been doing it since 99, 2000 part time, but since 03, that's all I've been doing is betting sports.
Yeah, and you left a really cushy job. I mean, you're Deutsche Bank, Wall Street. You were already making a ton of bank before going to sports betting, right?
Yeah, I was a 6-figure job, and but at the same, that's why people thought I was crazy. I was just recently married, and the in-laws, everybody gave me pushback. And what are you doing? Leaving this kind of job and to become a professional gambler? Like, are you out of your mind? And this is back in 02, 03 when being a professional gambler was not. I don't even know how generally accepted it is today, but it really wasn't accepted back then. So I was doing it more on the side, and I was making more money on the side betting sports than I was on my regular job, and that's when I realized, the time to make the jump is now. And it's not. A lot of people think as an entrepreneur, I'm sure Pace, as an entrepreneur, you build your own company. It's not one of those things that you can. It's the 100 plus hours a week. You just get to choose which hours you're going to work. You're still working harder than most. It's not your 40-hour job. You're working 2.5 times what anybody else is. But you kind of get, you make your own rules and you kind of set your own guide. And I always had that entrepreneurial spirit in me. I just needed to find the outlet. And I never thought I was going to be a pro sports bettor. That's not what I went to school for. I thought I was going to work on Wall Street and, manage a hedge fund or something, go up that way. But here I am. So
it sounds a lot like you kind of just followed the money and you went where you thought you could make more.
Yeah, but you know what? Long term, I would have probably made more on Wall Street. Listen, I've had a very successful career. Don't get me wrong. I could retire yesterday. But at the same time, I liked sports betting. I was, just like anyone else, I was not a smart sports bettor coming up. But then I learned. I paid my tuition. I paid my dues, and I learned. And I just said, you know what? I'm not supposed to win on betting sports. Laying 110, mathematically, the edge is against me. So how do I find a way to turn it into my favor? And that's how I did it. I think it's just one of those things in which, you just check it. You do a little litmus test, and you just find out the proof of concept. Is this working? And then it starts working all of a sudden. And you're like, you scale, and then eventually, it's not whether you can win. The winning becomes the easy part. It's how can I scale and make this a viable business to be able to support not just me and my family, but my entire staff. So.
Yeah. Well, one of the ways you kind of did it, though, is, you talk about proof of concept. You actually sort of tailed someone else's proof of concept, none other than the legendary sports bettor Billy Walters, right? His sort of way of going about it was to build a consensus among handicappers, and he had a group of handicappers that he worked with pretty regularly, and sort of, polled them on an ongoing basis and sort of, went with consensus areas and sort of, built this kind of network. You did something similar, right?
Just like in any form of life, you find out who the most successful person is, you listen to their story, and you find out how they became successful. And then you try to emulate them. So it's not like, this is not, my own original ideas. I figured out, I talked to people that used to work for Billy, and I realized, Billy Walters himself is not a handicapper. Billy Walters will admittedly, if you read his book, he's gone broke many times. There was a time, he's a degenerate gambler at one time, but then he got smart. He wisened up, and then he aligned himself with smart people. And that's what I tried to do. I tried to get smart people, and I aligned myself with them. And everyone's smart until they're not, or everyone's a winner until they're not. So you kind of want to stay ahead of the curve. So essentially, what you do is, I said, what can I contribute? Because there's a bottom-up approach, top-down approach, but also, if you're building models and if you're trying to model sports betting, if you're going to do that, and usually people are good at one sport, it's rare you're going to find somebody that could win long-term at a good scale in multiple sports. So I said, instead of thinking about, choosing to be a baseball expert or a football expert or college football expert or UFC, whatever it was, I said, let me focus on getting outs, getting down, because that's needed by everybody. That's always the most important thing. If I could find a way to get down and build my network, then the experts eventually will have to come to me. And then I'll be able then to utilize all that expert's knowledge to be able to then siphon through that and then make educated bets by with some of the best information in the world. And that's what I did. I built my network and built my out pool where I'd go to Costa Rica. I'd travel around. I try to, meet different people and get as many outs as possible, be able to get down possible, and then build the technology to get down fast. I was the first guy in the business to be able to, do automated betting, to be able to hit, thousands of different websites within, a few seconds of each other. And to be able to automate that process is really what kind of given me the edge. I always tell everybody, I'm a computer scientist disguised as a sports bettor. I'm really more of a tech guy, and I just try to consolidate that information to try to get the best out of it, and that was the whole thing for me that I always was looking to do, and that's kind of what's given us our success today. We work with some of the best handicapping groups in the world. We also have our internal guys, but again, I'm of the mindset of when one smart person likes Team A and another smart person likes Team B, then you know what? I'm not really interested in that. But if three smart people all like Team A, then you know what? That's where I'm going to fire. You know what I mean? I'm going to fire hard, and that's kind of what we're going at. And they all independently arrive at that, and that's what we're looking to do. And that's kind of how, because I don't care about having, it's not like a dick measuring contest. I don't know if I could say that on this podcast, but
Hell yeah,
you can say whatever you want.
All right, yeah. So I'm not trying to be the smartest guy in the room. I'm just trying to make the most money. Like, this is nothing. A lot of people say, "Oh man, I have the best model, and I'm so smart at handicapping so and so sport." Congratulations, that's great. All this shit means nothing. It's all about getting down and winning and getting paid. And that's the most important thing. So I recognized that if I do that, then, and if I'm good at that, I'll always be on the forefront of, because I've worked with so many groups until they went bad, until they couldn't win anymore. Billy Walters has done the same thing. He said every group he's worked with eventually couldn't win anymore. I still have groups that still win, or some of them have lost their edge, but I'm always looking for the next big thing, and I'm always trying different things out, and I'm always interested in obtaining as much information as possible to utilize that to build that information network that I have. And that not just goes with handicapping groups, that goes for my injury groups as well, to be able to have injury information, to be part of a network, that we get the best injury information in the fastest time possible. And that's another thing that's kind of putting us at the forefront of being winning sports bettors. So sorry, that was a long rant, but
but there's so much I want to dig into there, like this network. Okay, so you're just a guy on Wall Street, and you're making some money betting on sports, and then you think, okay, I'm going to go full time here. How do you build this incredible network of people, of experts, and people you're working with to as you say, have outs or get money down?
So the network of outs, begins with a lot of it began with Wall Street. The guys on Wall Street have really good outs. They're rich, and they're able to bet big money, and they're sought as, most people, a lot of them are sought at as degenerate gamblers. So they have access to a lot of big outs, and I was friends with a lot of them. And then I found a way to be able to win, and I started scalping in middling games initially. And then all of a sudden, I started getting plays down before the actual originators, the guys that were coming up with these plays. I was beating them to their own number. And that's kind of when people started taking notice. I've been, a lot of people would get upset with me. Billy Walters has cursed me out, and a lot of, and then, we laugh about it now, but a lot of guys used to curse me out and get upset with me just because I was too quick. I'm never going to be too smart. I'm not as smart as any of these guys, but I said, if I'm not smart enough, I'll be faster than you. And that's what I worked on, my speed and my execution. And then all of a sudden, these groups would call me and say, Spanky, you bet this play. I'm like, yeah. Well, listen, instead of doing that, maybe we could give you the play ahead of time, and then you could bet it for both of us when we become betting partners. And that's what I said. Okay, that's a great idea. So, and that's kind of when all the groups had to come to me. I always give it's either you deal with me or you deal with me. And and it's, I don't want to, it sounds like a little bit of a tough guy thing, but it's not. It's like I'm gonna get the information no matter what. And it's either you're going to try to race me to your own information, or we could work together and both be happy. And the top gamblers in the world try to use me and utilize my skill of being able to get down, being able to move lines, being able to or not move lines, depending on what we need to do. And that's where that's where my expertise kind of lies.
It's really fascinating to hear there. Now, you mentioned, people, Billy Walters getting upset with you, other people getting upset with you, these originators. How do you get their information? And then on the flip side of that is then how do you sort of defend that, I guess, right? Because it is very controversial and people take issue with you over that.
Well, what happens is the information, once one person places a sports bet anywhere in the world, and the bookmaker either moves that line or does something, then that information becomes public knowledge. So initially what I used to do is I used to have these Asian outs. My partner, Chinese Mike, you guys probably heard of Chinese Mike. We used to get some of these outs in Asia that, the Asians used to only deal with, and primarily they still only deal with each other. It's hard to get into every culture is kind of like clustered. So we'd have these Chinese outs where we would be able to see guys like a Billy Walters or a Harala Bob. They would bet these games in these Asian outs, and these Asian outs would then move the number, and then they would move the number pretty heavy, and we'd recognize that. And then when we'd see that information and that line move, then we'd be able to act accordingly and say, okay, this is essentially a foreshadowing of what's to come. It's kind of a crystal ball into the future, not of who's going to win the game, but of where the line's going to go, which means they booked a sharp bet on that number. So what do? I'm also now going to try to bet into quiet outs. I can't bet them into loud outs, because if you bet them into loud outs, then the originator is going to know, oh shit, this Chinese bookie's leaking my information into the world. This isn't good for anybody. So then I'm going to bet them into my quiet outs. My quiet outs might be an out in Mexico, might be somebody in South Africa, might be someone in England, might be another Chinese guy that's working in a basement, might be whoever. You don't know who it's going to be, but we're getting him into all our quiet outs to be able to get my fill. And then, and that was the general strategy of doing all that. And then it wind up being, successful. Other methods we got, I used to, listen, I go to Costa Rica. I haven't gone in a while, but I would have access to all bookmakers in Costa Rica, and I'd get information fed to me, and still do till this day. You bet anything in an offshore out, where there's an information sharing network that I'm a part of. So I'll know if something is being shared. Once you place a bet anywhere, that bookmaker, that lines manager, whoever is going to use that information somehow. So if I have a bookie in Costa Rica that just booked somebody that he knows is sharp, every time this guy lays -5, the line closed 7. So he recognizes that. And he would say, Spanky, listen, can you, put me on a free roll or something? I'll give you the info and we'll bet together. Sure, no problem. This is the kind of network you establish, but it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years and years to be able to have my tentacles into all these different places. And you like that one, right, Pace?
That's fucking perfect.
Yeah, it is what it is, bro. Like, what do you want me to tell you? Like, I'm able to infiltrate whatever I got to do to get the information. I'm going to do it. And I put a podcast. One of my episodes is called Outs and Information. Like, if you have outs information, you rule the world in this game. That's all you need. There's nothing else more important. Outs and information. Brains is not part of that. You know what I mean? Just have outs and information, and that's it. Information, we are always trying to get that, and we're always working on that, and we're always working on outs. So, that's the general strategy, and I'm not hiding it. That's what I do.
Yeah, it's fascinating to sort of hear it sort of from the horse's mouth and get a sense of exactly how you're pulling it all together. And as you said, it takes years and years to build those kinds of networks. It's not something that I could just jump in and start doing tomorrow, or that, people in our audience could just, be like, all right, I'm going to go to Costa Rica and I'm going to go, meet the players down there. And, it takes time. And I guess, how do you build those kinds of relationships though? Like talk to me about the first time you go to Costa Rica and say, hey guys, I want to know what you're doing down here.
Yeah. So first off, we have to be recognized as a sharp bettor. So I would then, so I would be betting in Costa Rica, and this is, but when there's so many outs down there, and I would bet fast, and I would always get the best of the number. So I was recognized, oh shit, there's this guy Spanky that's betting, he's getting the best of the number, he's winning, so he has to know something. How they know I was getting the number, nobody ever asked those questions, nobody cared. I was just, either I had my own internal software that would monitor lines, and then we would just bet. I had my robots, my auto bettors, just betting these numbers. And that's all it was. And then you go down there. So you introduce the bookmaker. Hey, I'm going to come down there. Back then, it wasn't as, right now it's impossible. You say, hey, I'm going to come down and visit you. They'll think you're an FBI or whatever. They'll say, fuck you, you're out. But now, back then, it still was very difficult. But you meet one guy, you're playing there for 6 months, a year. He knows, listen, you're betting every single day. You're betting, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions over the long. So then you get to start getting established. Then you meet one guy, he introduces you to another guy, and another guy. We all go out drinking, and the network slowly grows and grows and grows and grows. I go next year, and then the following year, and the following year. Oh yeah, you ever met this guy? You know this guy? Oh yeah, we got to meet. And that's the thing, it's just that you start maybe becoming friends with everybody. Some of my best friends in the world are bookmakers, my bookmakers, and these guys have always been good to me. And it's not, I always say the bookie-bettor relationship doesn't have to be adversarial, and it isn't. These guys, we're still trying to win each other's money, but at the same time, we're buddies. We help each other out, and that's the thing. It's like it just took a long time, but I enjoyed it in the process. Like, I didn't think I was building a network at the time. I didn't go into it saying, okay, I got to start building this network. It just naturally, organically happened as I was building up my business.
I want to pick up on something you said there, because I think I know I'm going to speak for myself here. My experience is very different when you talk about the bookie-bettor relationship not being adversarial. I feel like I'm entering this space and coming up in this space at a time where it's inherently adversarial. I've never been friends with a bookie. I've never had a bookie, like a person that I would call up and make wagers with. So I guess, at what point was that lost? And do you feel like, maybe you still have those relationships, but I'm not sure that myself and many people who are sort of coming up in this kind of regulated environment where it's, legal in most jurisdictions, but we're all getting limited. We get kicked off books all the time, and it is a very sort of adversarial relationship.
Yeah, I think that got lost when everything got digitized and everything got on when technology kind of took over. I never, betting on the internet was a thing, but it wasn't the primary way we got down when I first come up in a business. I was always phone betting, because the internet, you'd get $500 limits, the phone, you'd get $10,000 limits. So obviously, I wanted to bet as much as possible. And especially if I'm scalping and middling games, you want to get as much down as possible. So I was always phone betting, which means I would always have conversations, and those conversations led to relationships. It just happens. There are no relationships you build with a screen. And if there's ever a problem or an issue, somebody will get on the phone with you and you'll talk about it. It was a conversation back then. Now that's lost. In the Vegas, when you bet on the counter with somebody, you're always talking to the guy. You're betting across the counter. It's a human-to-human interaction that unfortunately has been lost. Now, it's never coming back. However, sometimes you got to go out of your way to create that interaction. Like, for instance, when I started betting with FanDuel, before I placed my first bet, before I signed up with the account, I requested to meet with the main guy at FanDuel. His name was John. And I went to the Meadowlands. We sat down, and I said, listen, I don't want to go in the back door. I'm going to win. Just straight up, I'm going to win. Can we agree on some limits? He goes, yeah, sure. Here's what we'll do. And we have a gentleman's agreement. And the agreement hasn't really changed much, but I'm still alive at FanDuel. I still could get down.
Wow.
I'm still able to, don't get me wrong, I've been limited. The agreement still hasn't stayed exactly what it was, but it's enough. It's one of those things in which the bookmaker has to give you enough to keep you happy versus and enough for him to get the information as cheaply as possible, and that's what we do. Now, I'm a winner at FanDuel. I'm not afraid to admit that, but I'm still playing there. I'm still playing with just my own account, and because they accept me. Now, most people get because I said I was the one place I went and I met the guy first off, and I said, "Here's what's happening," and he goes, "I appreciate you coming in and telling me that, and not trying to go in the back door." Not trying to get 10 different accounts. None of that bullshit. One-on-one. This is what I'm doing. And he knows I'm going to win. You know what I mean? But he'll move his line accordingly. FanDuel is kind of unique in the sense is they're one of the bookmakers that actually move off my action and try to win using my action. Using my bets, which is what bookmaking is supposed to be. And that's worked out. I don't know if my action, they've utilized that information to their advantage or not. I'm not privy to their financials and how they've used my information. I would hope they have. And that's the Bookie-bettor relationship. And I think but that takes a lot of work. Number one, it's hard to get a meeting like that. It's hard to be able to for the guy to sit down with you. You have to have a reputation. You know what I mean? Can you say, "Hey, what's up? I'm Shane. Do you want to meet?" They might say, I'm part of not to say that this podcast isn't the best podcast in the world, but I'm just saying, like, are they going to say, "Hey, I'm Shane from Behind the Lines"? They're like, "Well, you know what I mean? I'll see if I could get a meeting," but you gotta work it. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. Like you got to make a phone call, and you might get hung up 99 times, but the 100th time, they might say, "Okay, let's set up a meeting." And that's what you got. That's how I did it. Like that's how I always did it. Every bookmaker in Costa Rica directly that I played with, I've gone out to lunch or dinner with them. Every bookmaker that I play now, I'm friendly with the guys at Circa. I'm friendly with the guys at Prime Sportsbook. I'm just friendly with the guys that are, and I'm friendly with the guys at FanDuel. I'm friends with the guys at Westgate. South Point, very friendly with them. And that's where the friendships end, unfortunately. But I'm just trying to think of. But you try, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I try to be friendly with some of the guys at Caesars and other guys, and then DK. You know what I mean. I try my best, and then it's cool. Like it's like one of those things in which, you try your best to try to build that relationship, but it's hard to do so in this environment. Right. Very hard to do so. And then it's so much easier for a bookmaker to limit you, Shane, when they don't have to look at your face and limit you, versus if they have to say, "Sorry, you're cut down, you're limited." That's a very hard thing to do because, it's just hard to deliver bad news in person than it is by just hitting a button. You know what I mean?
Well, I think a lot of our experiences is just the automated email that says, "Hey, you've been limited. Our decision's final. This is a business decision. Don't contact us again." Like basically fuck off and don't come back.
Yeah, we're gonna try to change that. That's something that's not acceptable. I don't think. This is this ban or bankrupt methodology that my colleague on the American Bettors Voice, which is a nonprofit we're starting, Richard Schutz, wrote about. This is a methodology that's come across from England, and we're trying to this is not. This whole limiting thing, individualized limits, was not common. Was not common ground 20 years ago or any time in Vegas. The only time individualized limits was happening if somebody wanted to give a VIP an extra limit. But house limits used to be a big thing. And house limits are no longer something that it should be a generally accepted thing that these are house limits that we'll take from everybody. And we're going to try to change that.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about this organization? What's the name of it again? And I guess who's in it? What kind of work is being done?
Yeah, so this is called the American Bettors Voice. It's a nonprofit that we're trying to do. We're trying to give the bettors a voice at the table. And this is something that's important to me, and we have a great staff that's involved in this, on this side, it's one of those things in which anytime legislation is passed or any regulators get involved, you always hear the operator's viewpoint, but the bettors never get to chime in. And I'm just thinking, you know what? The time has come where we need a players advocacy group. We need a bettor's voice to be heard to help with some of these decisions. One of them would be limiting, for example. Other ones would be trying to, there's so many different objectives we have, but one of them would be to try to make a standard set of rules on how wagers are graded across the regulated landscape. Like it's really like, and I think that the operators should be able to come together and create that set of rules. It's really stupid how a game can get graded as a winner at bookmaker A and as a loser at bookmaker B. Like, this should not take place. This should be a standardized, because you want everybody should adopt the same type of rules on how bets get graded, and just little things like this that we're trying to push across, and to try to make it so that deposits and withdrawals should always be as seamless as deposits, and they never are. Withdrawals are always a lot more difficult, and that shouldn't happen. Like, it just it's you cry KYC and all this other bullshit when somebody wants their money. But if they're trying to deposit the money, who gives a shit? I don't give a shit if you're dealing drugs and you're part of the Mexican cartel. Fuck it, just send your money. We'll worry about it later. Because if you lose, who gives a shit about KYC? That, and that shouldn't be the case. If you're gonna really try to, I always say the withdrawal should be just as seamless as a deposit, or even easier. It should never be more difficult. And that's the landscape we're in, where it is more difficult. So things like this that should be adjusted, and that you kind of, that I've seen, that I've learned. I used to work with bookmakers outside the regulated market. One of my favorite bookmakers ever was a guy by the name of Wally Monday. And he got the name Wally Monday because he always paid on Mondays. And he'd always pay fast. You want to always pay fast. In the unregulated environment where you're working on credit, you'd have a settle up day. You'd always settle up later in the week. But if you have money coming to you, you'd always get paid on Monday by the top tier bookmakers. And that's what should be happening in the regulated environment. People say, how do I eliminate the unregulated environment and have people stay with us? Pay fast. Don't make them jump through hoops to try to, get a withdrawal. Look, I had an account. I had $1,000 in some account, and I was trying to withdraw the money, $1,000. They told me we need to send you a picture. You need a picture of your ID. I'm like, what the fuck? I send them a picture of my license. They go, no, you need to have your face in it. So then I send a picture of my license with my face in it. This is for $1,000. This is like crazy shit. And then they say, sorry, you need to send it again. It was blurry. Now I'm fucking steaming. So now the picture all of a sudden has my license, and then I got this fight. I'm like, fuck you. For me to it's just like so stupid. Like, really, you know what I mean? Like, if you would have asked me for this shit before I deposited, you would have not gotten my business, and I don't need to deal with this shit. But this is what's happening, and I think a lot of it just has to do with, I don't know. Honestly, sometimes I feel as if somebody's trolling me or some shit out there. I don't know if it's just me, but I hear other stories. It's just like the process is not easy to withdraw from a lot of these places, and I think that's another thing we kind of want to work on. We want to work on making this sustainable and making it so that, the whole limiting thing is something that's very, very passionate about, not just for guys like us that get limited and cut down, but for also guys that get super high limits, because that's when you get into the RG, the responsible gaming aspect, where a guy that was betting $5,000 a game, he might be, he's let's just say he has $1 million bank or whatever. He's betting 5 times a game. It's not going to affect him. He's going to be fine. But all of a sudden, you tell him, listen, you could bet 100 times a game, and now all of a sudden, that recreational happy gambler, you just turn him into a problem gambler. You're trying to take it all. That's not what this whole thing is designed for. This, so they try to preach this. This is an entertainment business, and we want to extract a little bit from everybody, make them have a good time. But if you're trying to do that, then why the fuck are you giving, giant super limits to the customers you deem as dummies, and giving shit limits to the customers that have, a pulse, or I should say the customers that you deem as smart, which are really, I think they cut a lot of people's limits that are, people are not even smart. So, but that's a different story. But yeah, sorry, I go off on tangents here, but this is kind of the stuff we're trying to address, and hopefully we kind of make a change. We just want our voice to be heard, and we'll see what happens.
It sounds great. And, to start this organization, again, it's American Bettors Alliance.
It's the Americans Bettors Voice.
Bettors Voice.
Can
Canadians join?
And,
is it Americans
sure,
only?
Anybody could join. Canadians, sure. It's for North America. But we call it the American Bettors Voice. But Canadians can join. And the advisory board, we have Brett Smiley, Brianne Dora Shawahal, Susan Hansel, Allison McCoy, Richard Schutz, Eric Raskin. Billy Walters is there as an advisor as well for us, and he's a supporter. So it's it's great. We want to see the business grow and be sustainable, and I think that the way to do it for any business, no matter what, there's always a consumer group, a consumer advocacy, and I think, let's face it, obviously, without the players, this industry is nothing, right? We're the ones that are the blood behind this whole landscape. So you got to be able to get the players involved.
All right, American Bettors Voice. Well, awesome. Look forward to sort of seeing that work in action. I know that our entire audience for sure wants to sort of see those issues pushed forward. Let's talk about BetBash for a moment, because this is another sort of big event where you're bringing people together. Talk to us about how you started it, where it was when it started, and where it is going, and what we can expect coming up next month.
So BetBash was something I created back in 2021. I said to myself, I'm sick of this lockdown shit. I got to be able to get out and meet people, and what better people to meet than my fellow sports bettors. So we did the BetBash one in Jersey City. It was just a one-night event, kind of as a proof of concept idea, and trying to see if people would kind of come out, have an open bar, and just mingle. It was just a party, open bar cocktail party, and 220 people showed up to a random bar in Jersey City. And then I said, shit, that's pretty strong. And we're not talking about locals. People came from Canada, from England, from California. I'm like, damn. So everyone's just feeling as, wants to meet others just as much as I do. So then I said, okay, this is bigger than I thought it could be. I talked to Matt Metcalf. I talked to Derek Stevens at the Circa. And I said, I want to host an event, and I want it to be a multi-day event, and I want to do it in Las Vegas, and I want the Circa to host it. Derek was all for it, and Matt Metcalf was kind of was helped facilitate that, and we went with it. And then BetBash 2 then came just about 8 months after BetBash 1, April in Las Vegas. It was a great time. We had networking, that's when we had the speed networking event, where we kind of had because I noticed that BetBash 1, there was a lot of smart guys there, but a lot of sports bettors are introverted, unfortunately. And then I said to myself, in order to get these guys out of their shell, maybe we need to have a structured networking event. And that's where I kind of thought about speed networking, kind of like speed dating, but instead of having, you have 5-minute dates, you have 15 5-minute meetings. You kind of fill out a compatibility form, but for sports and sports betting interests, and then the computer then matches you up with 15 matches. And we had that at BetBash 2, and that was a big hit. We brought it back last year, BetBash 3, and that will be a staple of BetBash to come. There's guys that fly in just for that speed networking, they fly out right after that. So they just buy the whole ticket, participate in the speed networking, and leave, which I find fascinating. That's how important that event is. Yeah, and then we had the same thing. The pool parties at the Staples. We're like, the one thing about Vegas is you sure you want to learn, and I always want to push education and learn and kind of network, but I also want to party. Like, this is Las Vegas, so how do you party? I had to make sure that open bars were always a part of it. Open bars, and I'm pushing open bars all the time. Because Las Vegas, listen, let's face it, the cocktails can add up. You know what I mean? Especially if you're getting good, if you're getting good, if you're getting good cocktails, the prices can add up. You know what I mean? So I wanted to have quality open bars there, and the price of those open bars are expensive. But I said, fuck it. I don't care if it's expensive. We'll factor that in because we want people to be able to relax and still network while having a good time. So we pushed that. And then, other events. Then the following year, which was last year, I went to Derek again, and I said, I want to start the Sports Gambling Hall of Fame. And again, I've never heard really Derek say no, so that's a good thing. I know he says no a lot, but he hasn't said no to me really. So, but yeah, he was all for that, and that's a very important part of BetBash. It's our capstone event where Derek decided that beautiful sports book, the world's largest sports book. Some guy named Spanky walked up to him and says, "Listen, I'd like you to modify and tear down one of the walls of your sports book and put in a Sports Gambling Hall of Fame." I didn't think he was going to this. You never go to somebody and expect them to say, "Yeah, sure." He goes, "Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll do it." Like, what the fuck? Like, you know what I mean? It's crazy. But it was all his idea to build it exactly there. He helped design it. He shared the designs with me. I loved it. And that's how cool Derek is. If Derek likes an idea, and I notice, I don't know if you guys, know Derek Stevens at all, but he's all about legacy. Like, he's all about the history of Las Vegas. And when you look up at the Legacy Club, there's just busts of all these guys that kind of built Las Vegas. From, Jackie Gaughan to Benny Binion to, all the legends that have built Las Vegas. There's so many of them. But then he says, okay, let's do that now with sports betting. Let's try to build this same thing and have plaques of people that have kind of built the sports gambling industry. And that's what we had. And then we had our induction ceremony last year, our first ever induction ceremony, black tie event, fucking beautiful event. We had an after party at the Legacy Club. We're going to have the exact same thing this year. And that's, it just kept spiraling and spiraling from there, where it's now grown to this awesome event that people plan their whole year around. So I could go on, brother, but so I hope that was good. I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Pace, you're going to be going to BetBash for the first time, right? How are you feeling in the lead up to it?
I landed home from Vegas 2 days ago, man. Like, how am I feeling? No, I'm super excited for the event. Should be a lot of fun. I mean, Spanky, I got to give you credit, man. So, like, one of the first things you said is you referenced your losing period as paying your tuition. And, you kind of referenced always wanting to learn. So there's a big theme there. And if you put this all together, right, we haven't even touched on Spank odds yet, but if you put this all together, you've got a lot of ways, yes, for people to reach you. Sure. You could be like, hey, you got to come, you got to, deal with me, or you got to deal with me. Right. But at the end of the day, from Spank odds to the voice of the bettors in America, and BetBash, you're really doing a lot for the betting industry as a whole, so that sports bettors actually can, gain some education in this stuff. It's pretty clear, right? Talk about a career path and all these different things. You're talking about flying to Costa Rica. There isn't some handbook, where you're like, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go start at this company, and they're going to train me how to do it. Obviously, that's not how this works. So you've given people a bit of a compass when it comes to this type of thing, because what we have seen, especially with technology and the growth of technology, and the younger generation coming up, people have access to a lot of information, right? You talk about the information that you have access to, but separately of that, there's AI services, there's tons of things out there right now where you can go, hey, I can scrape out an edge here in some way, shape, or form. And of course, what happens very quickly to a lot of these players, and obviously we're not even talking about 5 figures level of profit, like 4 figures or less for some of these people. They get kicked off the sites and they go, what the hell? What do I do now? What's next? And I think a lot of these things all lean towards helping the industry make these better decisions, which is hugely aligned with what we're doing at In Play Live. So, yeah, huge thank you to that, Shane. Yeah, super pumped for BetBash. We're sponsoring the pool party, so we're gonna get Spanky dressed in a nice In Play Live cape with a speedo on for that event.
You couldn't pay enough of a sponsorship fee to get that to happen, Pace. But I love you anyway.
Oh,
but
so yeah, it's happening regardless of what he says. So we just the drinks are flowing. And
I love it.
So yeah, I mean, it should be a ton of fun. I mean, I walked into that Sports Gambling Hall of Fame. When was that, Raj? It would have been in March. Yeah, we walked in there in March. It's really cool, Spanky. So Vizio there, the studio up above, they featured my betting setup on one of their shows that we had posted here on our podcast as well. And when I saw that was there next to the Gambling Hall of Fame, I think for someone like myself, it gives me like a lot of curiosity. Obviously we've learned a little bit more about it with having Fats on a couple weeks ago, but it gives me a lot of curiosity, but it's also something where I go, geez, it would be so cool to have someone from In Play Live in that Hall of Fame someday down the road. So, you've given some of the top guys something to aspire to as well, which is really cool. So yeah, super pumped. Should be awesome.
Yeah, the Sports Gaming Hall of Fame is something that's really, really, it's special. And I'm sure Fats, I know, touched upon it. He's part of the committee, the advisory board. You need 75% approval rating to get into something, to get into inducted. I don't have a vote. I'm just an administrator. So it's, and Derek Stevens doesn't have a vote because the Circa hosts it. So we don't want to have any influence, both of us, on who gets inducted. We have a board of experts and that board determines, who gets nominated and inducted. And believe me, a lot of people are like, why not this guy or why not that guy? Trust me, if somebody's deserving, they'll eventually get in. And then it's the board is incredible on what they're doing, and it's hard. To build a Sports Gaming Hall of Fame, it's difficult because, let's face it, a lot of the top sports bettors are not known. Bookmakers, even a lot of the top bookmakers, are not as well known. A lot of them have operated underground, so it's hard to kind of get them out of their shell. A lot of people still like to remain anonymous. So so it's a hard thing, but we're doing our best to try to recognize those individuals that are known or that are, and to try to give them the credit that they deserve. For it's one, the objective of the Sports Gaming Hall of Fame is to induct someone that has materially transformed the sports gambling business.
Right.
And that just doesn't mean you're a winning sports bettor. Being a winning sports bettor is there's a lot of winning sports bettors. What have you done to materially transform, make a material impact on the sports gambling business? And that's the thing we're looking for. Not just winning bettors or great bookmakers, people that kind of changed the game, that brought the game forward, that did something for the business. So that's kind of the whole thing of what we're looking at, and or that have till that time have just been unbelievable, experienced unbelievable results, and kind of changed the way people think about betting sports. So it's pretty cool. It's really cool stuff.
What's interesting though, and I think you're 100%. You hit the nail on the head there with the anonymous thing. There's definitely people that are operating, sort of underground. That maybe we don't even know about today, and maybe the books know about quite a bit more than we do, just because of how many of them they've hit and that sort of thing. But to that point, it's like, everyone makes their own decisions, right? And power to them. But you just mentioned that people fly in just to do this speed networking thing. Well, why do they do that? And it's because the benefit that they received from being with like-minded individuals, having that sense of community, and obviously learning and continuing to learn. So like for my betting journey personally, like I went from being a remarkably successful sports bettor to a whole other level when I started In Play Live, not because of me, but because of the people that joined the community that were able to help me learn and grow. So like my big challenge to anyone that would be super successful in the betting community is that you can always keep learning and you can always better yourselves, because I promise you the books are going to continue to adapt regardless of whether you come forward or not. So yeah, you can keep gaining new edges and keep gaining new advice and continue to learn if you do come forward, and the impact that can have on your bankroll is just catastrophic, right?
Absolutely. Never stop learning. Like you said, pace. It's just, you gotta just keep it rolling, and that's one beautiful thing about BetBash, in the sense of the level of talent there is honestly from the super novice all the way to the Billy Walters of the world, and then everybody in between. Everybody's there. There are very successful sports bettors there. There are up and coming. There are semi-pros. There are pros. There are amateurs. There are intermediates. Anything in between. But you know what? I've learned a lot of great things from beginning guys. They might have said something to me, and I'm not going to share a lot of things, but I'm just, because there's things that I've learned from guys that they're just starting up, but they said something that sparked something in my mind. And you learn from each other, like, you know what I mean? Just because I've been doing this for a long time doesn't mean I know it all. I still have so much to learn. I might be at a point in which I need to shut my brain off a little bit because I'm tired, but I still want to learn. That the desire to learn is always there. The professional sports bettor Jelko, who comes there, and he participates in the speed networking. And that guy is, the most successful sports horse player in the world, horse bettor in the world, and he comes to that. And I go, really? You want to do the speed network? He goes, yeah, I might learn something. You know what I mean? Talk about, like, shit, this guy, he's at the top of his career, but he still wants to keep learning, still wants to keep advancing. And that's the kind of, people that are so successful never want to stop learning. They're always the desire to keep learning and learning and learning. It has nothing to do with the money. The money is going to come. You just have to keep getting better and better and better, and the money eventually comes. And I'm a firm believer of that. If you keep focusing on making money, then you kind of you stress yourself out, and you lose the sight of, let me just be good, do a better job, better my process of whatever I'm doing, and then the money eventually comes. I firmly believe in that, and once you do that, then you're well on your way.
I want to ask you, Spanky, what are you hoping to learn moving forward? What areas are you sort of focusing on developing your craft? Where are you hoping to get your future edges as we sort of move forward, and technology advances and all those things? You've been in this game a long time, but you still have a fair amount of time in front of you. So where are you hoping to grow?
Well, I'm always looking to align myself with smart people. So my networking wise, I'm always looking to network and meet some of the smart people. A lot of the younger guys, younger generation, I want to meet. Always trying to find more outs. That's always an important thing to grow, because again, without outs, that I can't operate. And then at the same time, I want to, for me now with the American Bettors Voice, I kind of want to learn now a lot more about the other side of the counter and what's happening, and how I can see things from the bookmaker standpoint, and learn what challenges they face, for me to kind of understand their decisions, and how we can make those decisions aligned for both the player and the operator. And for me to do that, I need to understand more of the operator standpoint, and just learn what it's like to run a bookmaking operation. I don't know that. I only know how to run my own. I sat in bookmaking offices in Costa Rica many times, of course, but how is it to run this in a regulated environment where there's additional costs, where there's a lot of things that are not as factored in. So and this is an important thing for me to kind of grow in my knowledge, and just again socialize, and you never know. Like, I always go into BetBash or go into any meeting with an open mind. I have no idea what to expect sometimes, but I always go there, hoping that this is going to be the best meeting I've ever had in my life, and that's what you got to go in. Always go with an open mind, and never, assume that that this is not going to be productive. Because most of the times, most meetings, you guys will both know, I'm sure have had a lot of, most meetings are not productive, or you don't, but you try to pick out a silver lining in every dark cloud, and you try to find and figure something out to kind of advance yourself forward, whether that be your business or whether it could advance you personally forward. And that's just a part of life, no matter what you do, not just in sports betting, but in everything.
I got to ask, since we're in play live, do you do any live betting? I know that, everything you sort of reference is a lot of pregame, but do you do any live betting? And if so, what do you like to bet on live?
No, so it's funny you say that. I come up in like 99, 2000, where live really wasn't a thing back then. And I always say, and I get, I no longer do any of the betting as much as, myself, I'm not as betting, I have a staff and I have an office and stuff, so we're betting that, but I'm not really choosing the bets. My staff does a lot of the work, but when it comes to the live betting, I if I would have done that, I probably would have lost maybe 10 years on my life just because of the stress involved. It's just a different beast. Lines are moving way too fast for me. I commend you guys for the edge that you have betting live. And that's great. And that's a great way to make money betting sports. It just never was my thing. Do I bet half times? Absolutely. And I guess that's a sort of a live thing, a moment in time. Always bet half times coming up because that was the thing back then. But betting live, no, I haven't. And even betting halftime is very stressful at one point. So it's just one of those things in which our plate is pretty full as it is. Do we want to put more on it? Eventually we will. We might want to factor in live. Like people say, do you bet soccer? And the answer is no. Do we want to? Sure. But a lot of the soccer movement happens at 3, 4 a.m. Eastern time. And, my staff are not zombies. They have to sleep. You know what I mean? So we just can't put it all in and fit it all in. We want to, but we just can't. So, with the current schedule as it is now, we're pretty much in college, from August through March. That's when we're working the hardest. And then this is the time of year where my staff kind of takes it easy, relaxes, doesn't do too much betting. And that's how, we're able to have to enjoy the longevity that we've had, just because we just can't be, that's a beautiful thing about betting. You don't have to, as a bookmaker, you have to service everybody all year round. As a bettor, I get to choose, which games I want to bet and when to take off and when I don't want to take off. So,
yeah, you get to choose the time of years you work. You get to choose where you work. Now, you've chosen New Jersey, and I know that's where you're from. Is that why you've chosen to live in New Jersey? Do you feel like you could? Yeah, that's why. So, do you feel like you would have better edges anywhere else?
Most of our action's offshore anyway, so it doesn't matter where I am. But and I've been doing this for 20 years before any of this regulated shit happened. So New Jersey is just where I'm at. That's where I live, and that's where my staff lives. And then my office is 5 minutes from me, 5 minutes from Chinese Mike's. My whole trading staff, so we're just close. We want to be close to the office, and it's just a convenience thing. Luckily, so does have it that New Jersey also has several regulated sports books that we can play into. You know what I mean? That was just by chance. But I don't know if that it's not like most of the regulated sports books don't accept me anyway, so that didn't matter. You know what I mean? And we're just doing our thing here, and I was born and raised in Jersey, so I don't see myself leaving anytime soon.
Well, we've got a pretty big Jersey contingent at In Play Live, and perhaps at some point you'll get a chance to meet some of those guys, and you guys could connect in real life.
Would love to.
Yeah. Spank, it's been great having you here on the show. If people want to connect with you, they want to chat with you, hit you up, how can they reach you?
They I'm at Spanky on Twitter, but I don't really check my messages. To be honest, I have thousands of unread messages. I don't want to put anybody the wrong way. If you want to, if you want to reach out to my betting partner, my colleague Chinese Mike, he's Chinese Mike 2 on Twitter. The number 2. Also Spank Odds. If you guys, I guess, if you want to check out my software, spankodds.com. And then I'll see you at BetBash. I try to make sure that I meet everybody that comes to BetBash and, shake their hand and kind of give a personal touch to it. So looking forward. Are you coming, Shane, or you can't make it this year?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to make it. But Pace and his partner Raj will be there, and hopefully, I can mark it on the calendar for next year and make sure I plan it out nicely.
No problem. Looking forward to it. And yeah, I think it'll be a good time. And yeah, I look forward to I thank you guys for sponsoring our event. You guys have made a good name for yourself at In Play Live. So I commend you for that, and I look forward for you to coming out and enjoying yourself. Stadium swim. It's going to be 110 degrees or whatever it is. So the good thing is that dry desert heat. You jump in a pool, you get out, you're like dry within 30 seconds, as you guys know probably if you were chilling already there. So that's the one good thing about it. And we got open bar, the food. We got a nice spread at the stadium swim, so that's good. And if you ever want to cool down, we got the same exact spread going on in the sports book as well. So if you're not about, so both, they're both going to be great events, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you guys and having a good time.
Awesome. Well, a Spanky in a speedo, I think, is worth the price of admission alone for anybody out there that's on the fence about going. That sounds like reason enough to go.
I love it. Love it, brother.
All right, Spanky, been great chatting with you. Pace is always a lot of fun. Any parting words, Pace, but before we take off here?
Just if you guys want more of Spanky, the Be Better Bettors podcast is one that you could always follow along for as well.
Yeah, great content over there. All right, Spanky, Pace, and to everybody betting on sports around the world, till next week, keep beating those books, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join In Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.